Gentlemen, listen to this. Sometimes when you take a look at a pasuk, you see that the Torah specifically, bedafka, throws a word in there that the Torah knows, that you know, that that word doesn't belong. And it's as if it's screaming, Dorsheni, please, be Doreshmi. The opener of this parasha is one of those incredible examples. You have an opening pasuk that literally you read it on a simple level and already a person stops and says, wait, what's going on? Dorsheni. This doesn't make sense. There must be something deeper. There must be something bigger here going on. Let's jump into this together. Listen to these words and you tell me where the Torah is screaming Dorsheni. Vayera elav Hashem be'elonei mamre v'hu yoshe petach ha'ohel kechom hayom. So Abraham Avinu, Hashem comes in front of him, shows himself to him, and where is he sitting? He's sitting petach ha'ohel, in the heat of the day. Now listen to the next pasuk. Vayisa enav vayar. Abraham Avinu picks up his eyes and he sees. What does he see? V'hine shlosha anashim nitzavim alav. 3 men standing, waiting in front of him. Vayar vayarotz likratam mipetach ha'ohel. Unbelievable. Listen to this pasuk. Vayisa enav vayar. Vayisa enav vayar. He picked up his eyes, he saw. And then what does it say? Vayar vayarotz likrata. Again, he saw them and he ran in front of them to bring him in. Hachnasat orchim. What's going on? What's going on in the pasuk? Vayar vayar. It already said Vayisa enav vayar. From that point, it should simply say, Vayarotz likrata. He saw them. He ran in front of them. No. Vayisa enav vayar. He saw them from a distance. Vayar vayarotz likrata. Again he saw them and he ran in front of them. Why does the pasuk say the second time vayar? This is a pele that all the mafarshim are trying to understand. Why does it say vayar twice in the pasuk? Rabotai, I want to tell you over what I heard in the name of the Sefer Sha'arei Orah. He gives us a new perspective on what is a true Baal Chesed. Remember what we said. We said that Abraham Avinu was very different than Noah. Remember, we already said that in the last class. Noah, he was born to Metushelach, he was born to Chanoch, he was born in a world that when he thought of God, he thought of right and wrong. And that's why when it came to the pasuk describing Noah and Hashem, it was always Elokim. It was judgment, black and white, right and wrong. That's it. Right, wrong, black, white. Finished. No flexibility. But Abraham Avinu, he came from a terach. He came from houses of Avodah Zarah. He had to go and find Hashem. He wasn't introduced to Hashem, but he had to go looking for Hashem. He had to find him. And Abraham Avinu had this great question. If there is a God who is so perfect, and he's above everything else, and he created everything else, if he's so perfect, perfect means you need nothing. Perfect means you need no one. Then why create? Why do you create a world if you don't need anybody? Says Abraham Avinu, there's one thing I see, that even though Hashem is perfect, says the Ramchal, Abraham Avinu understood that even though Hashem is perfect, but Hashem still wants to do chesed. He wants to be metiv as an expression of his perfection. A perfect essence wants chesed and tov with others. And to do that, Hashem creates a world. To do chesed with his creations. To be metiv with his creations. So wait one second. If that's the case, Who was the God that Abraham Avinu found? A God of Chesed, a God of mercy, a God that wants to be metiv, even to Rishaim. And that is why, when it comes to Abraham Avinu, it's always Vayar Elav, Hashem, Yud Kei Vav Kei. It's always Chesed, it's always mercy. To him, it's always mercy. To Noach, it's always judgment. To Abraham, it's always mercy. Because that's the God he found. And we said last week, a big vart. Last week we said, remember, according to your faith and the God you believe in, that's the God you found. That's your Hashem. It's up to you if you want him to be judgment or mercy. Because it's up to you. What do you believe he is? Abraham Avinu believed that he's a God of mercy, a God of Chesed. And therefore, it makes sense. Abraham Avinu became the Amud of Chesed in the world. Because he found Hashem, the God of Chesed. So if I want to be an ambassador for Hashem, I want to represent him, so what's my midah going to be, says Abraham Avinu? Chesed. Because if I'm going to represent him as the ambassador of God in this world, if God is Chesed, then I'm his representator, then I got to be Chesed. Abraham Avinu becomes Chesed LaAbraham, the great ambassador of Chesed. So now that you know the behind the scenes of how Abraham Avinu became the ambassador of Chesed, now listen to this. Says the Sefer Sha'arei Orah, this is the reason why the second pasuk says the word Vayar twice. He sees the people. He sees these three people out in the desert. Vayisa enav. He opens his eyes, pick up his eyes. Vayar, and he sees. And then Vayarotz likratam. He sees it again, and he runs. Wait 1 second. Why did he see it a second time? Why does it say Vayar a second time? Says the Sha'arei Orah, I want to teach you what is a true Baal Chesed. A true Baal Chesed is someone who not only sees the person in need, but he sees the need in the person. That's the two Vayar. Vayar, I can see a person in need. But Vayar, I see the need in the person. I'm able to perceive people's needs. There are people that are gifted with a talent. They're able to pick up the vibe on people and read them and see between the lines what they really need. That's a good Rebbe. If you find a Rebbe like that, don't leave him. If he could see what your need is, and he could understand your need, and he could fill that need for you because he understands the perception, he perceives the needs of people, that's somebody that's a Baal Chesed. A true Baal Chesed perceives the needs of people, people's needs, and he feels them. And that's why I want to tell you something very interesting, Rabotai. Listen to this, open your hearts. We just started recently here in the shul, 7 a.m. in the morning, an amazing Yerucha program. And the program was built out by a Bedin in Lakewood. The website is beishavad.org. And the program, Be'etzem, was to reintroduce the learning of Choshen Mishpat Be'iyun to Klal Yisrael. To give people in the workplace a real clarity of the halakha l'maaseh that's nogea to them every single day in work. We started this program at 7 a.m. in the morning, and Bli Ayin Hara, right away, 35 guys signed up. And Bli Ayin Hara, we got this great beginning of a program kicking off. It comes with booklets. It starts you from the Gemara, takes you down to the Rishonim, then Maran, the Torah, and then the contemporary shooting, halakha l'maaseh. And it's a beautiful program. The guys are loving it. What topic did we decide to start with? We started with a topic that we knew the perfect transition for the guys. Hilchot Tzedakah and Maaseh. in this community, that's everyone's number one favorite topic. They love tzedakah and maaser, and they have a million questions. I want to tell you something. I went to yeshiva over the years, and I studied Nida, and I studied Shabbat. I studied many areas of halacha, of law. I get more questions about maaser and tzedakah than I get by any other topic. It's an amazing thing. It's an amazing thing. Shabbat, Nida, Mafi. Tzedakah, maaser. Hey, Rabbi, I got to learn this. I want the promise. I want the guarantee. I want to see if I can test Hashem in this area that I can get the wealth. So this was the area we started. Hilchot, Tzedakah, and Maaser. And the guys are flying with it. They love it. We took a look in the laws of Maaser and Tzedakah, and we found out that in the psukim of Parashat Re'eh, that talks about all the psukim of Achicha ha'evyon, your brother, the poor man. The psukim of tzedakah. You know what the Torah tells you? Lo ta'ametz lebabecha v'lo tikpotz et yadecha. Don't harden your heart, and don't close your hand when it comes to giving tzedakah to your brother who's a poor man in need. Answer his request. Help him at his dire moment of need. The Torah talks about not just the aseh of giving tzedakah, but it talks about not ignoring other people's needs. Did you know that? Did you know that tzedakah has two lo ta'aseh? You know that? Do you know that if you're sitting in shul and a guy walks up to you and he sticks his hand out, you completely snub him and ignore him? Do you know that you're fringing on two lo ta'aseh of the Torah? Did you know that? Now don't get me wrong. I'm talking about a guy that you know he's legit because he's carrying a paper from a very respectable rabbi with a haskama that he's a real situation. Because if you're choshed that maybe the guy is a swindler, that's a different story. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about a real ani that you know is legit, and you decided to snub him. You decided you're not giving him the time of day because you already gave two guys. So 30 is a charm, and you say, that's it, I'm done. And you decide to snub him. The guy knocks on your door, and the kid's voice comes crackling over the intercom. My father said he's not home. You know what I'm talking about, right? So that's what I'm saying. So you decided to ignore the guy. Bottom line, you're fringing on two lo ta'aseh of the Torah. The Torah is telling you, don't ignore other people's needs when they're in dire straits. But you want to hear something interesting, guys. And this is the reason why I brought you up this topic. When Chazal talk about ignoring and the lo ta'aseh of ignoring aniyim and their needs, you know what the wording they say? The Torah says don't harden your heart. The Torah says don't close your hand. But do you know what Chazal to say? You know what the halacha says? The halacha uses the words Kol ha'ma'alim enav min ha'ani. Ma'alim enav means that he turns his eyes away from the ani and he does not look at him to see his need in his dire moment. That's such a funny thing. The Torah talks about hardening the heart, closing the hand. The rabbis talk about not letting yourself see him. What's with the seeing him? Hey, halakha, rabbanim, talk along the side of the way the Torah described. Lo ta'ametz levavecha, lo tikpotz et yadecha. What's this? Ma'alim enav, that he's hiding his eyes and ignoring, not looking at the guy. What does looking have to do with it? Vayarotz likrata. I want you to hear this word. The answer is, there's one thing to look and there's another thing to perceive. The first time in the pasuk, Vayisa einav vayar, he saw them. But the second time, vayarotz likratam, he perceived their need. He saw their need. Like I told you in the beginning, a beautiful liner. It's one thing to see an ani in need, but it's another thing to see the need in the ani. That's a whole different story. And that's two separate vayar. And that's why when it comes time for the halacha, when the halacha teaches you the laws of tzedakah and not ignoring the needs of aniyim, it doesn't talk about your heart. It doesn't talk about your hand. It doesn't talk about your pocket. It talks about your eyes, your sight. Have insight into the needs of other people. Perceive the need. Feel the need. Don't be ma'alim enav min ha'ani. Don't turn your eye away. Look at what the guy is going through. Feel people's needs. That is a real Baal Chesed. That's why when the Torah was introduced to you in the parasha of Hachnasat Orchim, what does it mean to be Abraham Avinu, the ambassador of Chesed, the real Baal Hachnasat Orchim? You know the intro that they give you? Vayisa enav vayar, vayar vayarotz likratam. He saw them twice. He saw the ani in need, and he saw the need in the ani. He saw and perceived what does the other guy need, and let me step up. I'm not going to turn my eye away from your needs. That's a big idea. I think this is a beautiful thing. I heard Rabbi Fran told over once, in the name, a story, a maaseh, of Rav Weinberg, Zechet Tzadik L'Bracha, the Rosh Yeshiva of Ner Yisrael in Baltimore. He says a very interesting story. He said the Rosh Yeshiva, he got a call. There was a lady that was divorced, Lo Aleinu, and she had small kids. And she told the rabbi, says, Rabbi, listen, it's right before Sukkot. Right before Sukkot. I don't think there's a reason for me to go out and buy a sukkah. I'm tight on money in the first place. It's going to be hard for me to buy the sukkah. Rabbi, I'm a woman. I'm not mechuyav in sukkah in the first place. My kids are all under bar mitzvah. So who am I buying a sukkah for? For what purpose? I'm going to go and spend money I don't have. And go and schlep and have to put it up with little kids. It's going to be very hard. You know what? I'll sit the first 3 days of the holiday. We'll eat at home. I'm not mechuyevet. They're not mechuyav. And the last 3 days of the holiday, they're going to go to their father. They'll see a sukkah there. Am I wrong for saying this, Rabbi? She asks the Rosh Yeshiva of Ner Yisrael. She asks Rabbi Weinberg. The rabbi thinks, and he tells her, Al pi halacha, you're 100% correct. You're not mechuyevet. The kids are not mechuyev. There's nothing to talk about. So I just want to tell you something. The Gemara talks about, in the beginning of Masechet Sukkah, the famous queen, Heloni HaMalka. And the Gemara tells us that although women are not mechuyevet in Sukkah, but an Isha Chashuva should be required to sit in a Sukkah for Sukkot. Isha Chashuva. She has her own special din. Like we saw by Heloni HaMalka, that she had her famous sukkah with many different compartments, with many different bedrooms. And depending on how chashuv the people were, and the family members, and the servants, would depend which part of the sukkah they were allowed to enter. She was a queen. She had her own royal sukkah. It's amazing. From all the famous sukkot that the Gemara demonstrates and illustrates, it's one of a queen to teach you. Isha Hashuvah is supposed to sit in sukkah. Says Rabbi Weinberg to this woman, he says, Al pi halacha, you're right, you're patur. Your kids, they're on the bar mitzvah. But I want your kids to see that their mother is an Isha Hashuvah. I want them to know that one day they're going to grow up and they're going to learn Masechet Sukkot, and they're going to say, hey, Ma, why, when we were kids, did we sit in the sukkah? You weren't mechuyav, we weren't mechuyav. Ah, it's because you're Isha Hashuvah, Heloni HaMalka. The rabbi said that you're Isha Hashuvah, you're required. And therefore, said the Rosh Yeshiva, I would like you to have a sukkah anyways. The next day, there's a knock on this divorced woman's door, and there's a delivery. Dropped off in front of her house, a brand new entire, I don't know if it was lighters, it's not a paid advertisement, but it was a brand new sukkah that was shipped to her house, paid, anonymous. And you don't have to be a big chacham to know who was the one who paid for the sukkah, right? But at the end of the day, the sukkah was there so that she should feel that she's Isha Hashuva. Do you understand what this rabbi just did, guys? Do you understand the brilliance of Rabbi Weinberg, the Rosh Yeshiva there? You saw what he just did in this story? Do you understand that he just addressed the pain of a woman through a shaila of sukkah, like from where to where? She's asking this technical question about something that everybody already knows. Women are not mechuyavot in sukkah. And he turns it around and finds the way to reach inside to her real pain, her real problem, address it, picking her up, giving her family a certain new chashivut for who she is, giving her something to live for, sending the sukkah over, knowing that the financial situation in the house is of such, and that's probably what prompted the question in the first place, because that's somebody that perceives people in need, but maybe more so, the need in people. And that's the pasuk. A true Baal Chesed is not just vayisa einav vayar. It's not just that he picked up his eyes and saw the guy in need, but vayarotz likrata. But he saw the need in the guy, and that's what made him spring into action and run. Abraham Avinu didn't walk. Vayarotz, rats. He ran. Why did he run? Because when you feel the need and the pain of someone else, you're running. Because it hurts you as much as it hurts them. You're running. It's your problem now. And on your own problems you run, don't you? So you'll run on the problems of other people as well. It's unbelievable. We got to take this to heart. We got to take this to heart. You know, they say over the Bet HaLevi, Rabbi Yosha Ber, the Bet HaLevi, the great grandfather of the Brisk dynasty, the father of Chaim Briska, the grandfather of the Brisker Rav, the Bet HaLevi, we learn his sefer in the morning on Bitachon. One of my favorite svarim in the world was the essays of the Bet HaLevi on Bitachon. If you don't have this book, you're missing a big Yeshua in life. I don't know how you could survive without this book. I really mean that. This is a sefer that by me is a top of a shelf sefer, and especially the Hebrew one that came from Israel. It's like a brown goldish with the Bet HaLevi's face on the front of it and the Hebrew subtitles on the bottom. It's amazing. I don't know who wrote whoever did it. They didn't put their name in the book, but the subtitles on the bottom of the sefer, the footnotes at the bottom of the essays, the Bet is brilliant. Whoever did it, one day I'd love to meet that person. I think he's from Eretz Yisrael. I'd love to meet what they put there. It's unreal. The Bet HaLevi, listen to this, guys. This is crazy. The Bet HaLevi was once approached, it was the Rav in Brisk, right? He was once approached by a poor man who said to the rabbi, Rabbi, it's right before Pesach. I just want to know, can I use milk for arba kosot? See, as an American, we don't even begin to understand these questions. It's Hashem's Chesed, Rachmanut. Maybe after the Holocaust, Hashem had mercy on the generation that followed because of the tremendous blow that we took. And he wanted to, it's like after a father, his son is in a bad accident, even though the boy stole the car, and he was driving without insurance, and he almost, chas shalom, did what he did, but still, Kozman, that kid is banged up in the hospital bed. The father still shows up and hugs him and kisses him and cries over him and begs Hashem to save him. After the Holocaust, we got into this really bad, but Hashem came after that and hugged us and kissed us and picked us up and gave us shefa, until the American dream ran out. Anyways, but the bottom line is, this is when he came and asked the Bet HaLevi. He says, Rabbi, can I use milk for arba kosot? That's all I got. The Bet HaLevi said to him, milk? Arba kosot? He turns to him and says to him, listen, I'm going to give you money that you'll be able to buy wine and meat and chicken and a good meal for the night of the Seder as well. 1 second. He only asked the Bet HaLevi if he could use milk for Arba Kosot. Where did you get everything else? But the Bet HaLevi was a kluger. He was brilliant. He not only understood the man in need, but he understood the need of the man. He had a perception for people's needs. He quickly hopped that if this ani is even contemplating to use milk for Arba Kosot, that means that he has no meat, nor chicken, nor anything else on the table for the night of the Seudah, for the Chag. So not only did he give him money for wine, he gave him money for meat, he gave him money for chicken, he gave him money for a bisari meal, because he understood within the person the real problem. He perceived the real problem. And that's a real Baal Chesed. Don't do Chesed. Don't give tzedakah just because it's a good deed. And definitely don't do it out of a guilty conscience just to kish the guy. Here, take this and leave me alone. Here, get out of here. Stop banging on my door. If that's the case, you totally missed the entire concept of what a Baal Chesed is and a Baal Tzedakah is. A Baal Chesed and a Baal Tzedakah is a guy that cries with you first, feels your problem, and says, how can I take care of you the way I want someone to take care of me if Chas v'Shalom I was going through this? That's the opener of this week's parasha. We're introducing you to the quintessential Baal Chesed, Abraham Avinu. You know who he is? He's the one that on him it says the word Vayar twice. Because he sees the man in need, and he sees the need in the man. He perceives people's needs. And he feels them. And he carries it. You know how I know this? Vayarotz. He ran. Who runs? The only time people run is if they themselves are in pain. But that's what he was about. The real Baal Chesed. He feels that other guy's pain. It's unbelievable. Unbelievable. So that's the key of Chesed, Rabotai. Not only to open your heart, open your eyes. Open your eyes. People sometimes walk around life like a turtle. They see what they want to see. And what they don't want to see, they're very tactful by somehow or other slipping back into their shell and pretending and making believe like the only world that exists is inside their own shell. Because they know that the minute they're going to see what's really going on around them, the people that are really in pain around them, the people that are really in need around them, then I'm going to have to do something about it. Then I'm going to have to react because I don't. Yeah. And then I'm stuck. Because then I'm going to look bad. People are going to come to me and say, come on, but this is your brother. Why aren't you helping him? I didn't know he had a problem. Do you know how many times I hear this? Do you know how many family members are in such dire needs, problems, unbelievable problems, and you come to the brother, the uncle, the sister, and they're doing well, very well sometimes, very well. They don't want to hear it. They're out there helping the world, giving to this yeshiva, that dinner, plaques, pictures, every Yated Ed. They're all over the place. But hey, but this guy, your brother, he's suffering. Your parents can't pay their rent. I knew of such a case like this last year. The son's wealthy. The parents can't pay the rent. So aren't you going to help him? Put 6 months down like this. They don't have to come to you every month. They're your father, your mother. They shouldn't be coming to you in the first place. You should never even allow them to come to you to ask. You should jump and tell them, it's my honor? I don't know what the word is. My privilege to be able to help you after all these years that you brought me up. And you know what the guy says to me? I had no idea. What do you mean you had no idea? You visited your parents. You saw that they'd have very little in the closet. You saw that their matzav there, people see what they want to see. And they don't see what they don't want to see. Says the Torah, you know what Abraham Avinu was teaching you? Vayisa einav vayaros likrata. He saw because he wanted to see. He wanted to see. When he looked at people, he was looking for the need. You hear what I'm telling you? Other people, they look just enough that they shouldn't see the need so that they won't get cornered. Abraham Avinu was the mere opposite. I'm looking at the person only because I'm looking for their need. I want to help you. How can I help you? It's not a cliche like when you walk into a store. Hi, how can I help you? No, how can I help you? How can I be of help to you? I live to help. I live to serve. You know, there's some people like that. In this community, B'li Ayin Hara, we have so many of those people. I live to serve. I want to help. I look for people to help. When they hear someone's in need, they don't even know the guy. They just show up. Hi, I heard you can use a hand. All right. Where do we start? There are such people. They're beautiful people. They're Abraham Avinu nicks. They're beautiful people. They're vayar. They're looking. They're seeing. They're seeing because they're looking. Don't only open up your heart. First, open up your eyes. Open up your eyes. Remember what Chazal use in the terminology of ignoring the needs of people by tzedakah. Ma'alim enav min ha'ani. Because if you're not looking, you'll never see the needs of anybody. You got to look for it. You got to be genuine. Unbelievable. You know, the Gemara, in the 5th Perek, Masechet Ketubot, says over one of my favorite stories found in Gemara. This to me is be'emet, one of my favorite. The Gemara tells us, Mar Ukva, he was a Gabbai Tzedakah. Mar Ukva had this minhag, this unbelievable thing he did. Every Thursday night, him and his wife would go down to the poor side of town where there are broken doors, broken windows. And every Thursday night, he would take money and put it inside a handkerchief, and he would put it on top of the broken door of the Aniyim. He would put on top of the Aniyim, on top of their doors, money and handkerchiefs. He would know which families would need more. He's a Gabbai Tzedakah. So he put his money on the top of the broken doors. And the Gemara tells us that Friday morning, Erev Shabbat, the Ani opens the door, it starts to rain money. Woo! Gishmei beracha! And he has money now to go to the marketplace, to buy something for Shabbat, provisions for Shabbat. Mar Ukva and his wife would do this every Thursday night. And they would do this for years. Says the Gemara, one Thursday night, there was one Ani that decided to stake out who is the phantom giver. He wanted to know all these years, who is the one that's putting money on the top of his broken door? Who's the one that's keeping him going? So the Ani stayed up all night, waiting, sitting by the door, just watching to see the door move. And at that moment, the plan was, I'll open the door and I'll jump and unmask who was this phantom giver all these years. So Mar Ukva and his wife, They come by in the middle of the night. They come past this Ani's house. They put the ma'ot on top of his broken door. And as they put it on the door kind of shakes just for a little bit. The Ani sees. Here he is. He jumps. He opens the door. As he's turning the knob, Mar Ukva and his wife realizes that they're about to be had. They're about to be discovered. They're about to be uncovered. Their identity is about to be uncovered. So says the Gemara, what happened? They both instinctively turn around and ran. And the Ani sees the form of two people running through the darkness of the night, not exactly seeing who it was. So what did he do? He took off in hot pursuit. He chased them. So the Gemara tells us we got this hot pursuit going up and down the streets, Mar Ukva and his wife, and the Ani chasing, trying to see who it is. Says the Gemara, open your hearts. Mar Ukva and his wife, they come by the community oven. It's Thursday night. In the old country, the community oven Thursday night worked all night. They made the hamin in the oven. They made the challah in the oven. The food for Shabbat. Mar Ukva and his wife, they jump into the community oven just to ditch the Ani that was chasing him. He would never look there. The Ani comes by, runs right by, and they're hiding inside the oven, and they lose him. And their identity was not discovered. But then the Gemara tells us this amazing conversation that took place between the Gadol Hador and his wife. Mar Ukva, the Gemara says, his feet, while he was hiding in the oven, his feet started to burn. But he saw his wife's feet was not burning. To the extent that she turns to her husband and she says to him, come, your feet is, my husband, your feet are burning. Come step up on top of my feet. So like this your feet won't burn because my feet are not burning. To save her husband's feet. Unbelievable. Says the Gemara, what's going on here? Mar Ukva is the Gadol Hador. His wife is the Rebbetzin. But Mar Ukva's feet is burning and his wife's feet is not burning? Says the Gemara, yes. Yes. You know why? Because Mar Ukva, when it came time for the Aniyim to knock on the door and ask him for help, so here's a poor man. He's starving. He comes to Mar Ukva. He says, please help me. You know what Mar Ukva handed him? You know what he gave him, says the Gemara? He gave him money. Could the Ani eat the money? Can't eat the money. But what would he do? He'd take the money, he'd go to the marketplace, and use the money to spend on food. So Mar Ukva, his efforts to help the Ani's need was two steps. Step one, money, and then step two, creating from money food when the Ani would go buy food with that money. However, says the Gemara, when it came for the Rebbetzin, the wife of Mar Ukva, when she was approached by Aniyim that was starving, and they said, please help us, she didn't give them money. She went to her fridge. She might have went to her oven. She went to her fridge, and she brought out food, and she gave the Ani food to eat. Says the Gemara, her giving was a one-step answer to their problem, whereas her husband was a two-step answer to the problem. So because she was more direct in taking the need of the Ani, she had a bigger zechut of tzedakah. And that bigger zechut protected her feet in the oven she stood. And that's why her feet were not burning, and Mar Ukva's feet was burning. He had a two-step approach to his tzedakah for the need of the Ani, and she had a more direct one-step approach. Bigger zechut that protected her standing in the fire of the oven. She turns to her husband and says, come step up on my feet. Like this your feet won't burn. Because my feet are not burning. She had a bigger zechut at tzedakah. She knew how to reach the need of the poor man in a more direct way. She gave him food, not money. Guys, every time I learned this Gemara, it bothered me. It's a brilliant Gemara. It's a magnificent Gemara. I've told this Gemara over to my wife a ton of times. But really? Mar Ukva is Gadol Hador. He's Gadol Hador Mar Ukva. Mar Ukva didn't know. He didn't understand what his wife understood. He didn't understand that it's a greater madrega to give the ani food than to give him money, and the money has to then only translate later on to food once they go to the market. Well, Mar Ukva didn't know this. Why didn't he do what the wife did? Why didn't he give him food? And I think there's a big idea here. There's a reason why women, our wives, are the ones that bring up our children. I don't know about you guys, but when we had our first baby, so I'll tell you the truth, the baby's crying in the middle of the night. As a husband, you know what I heard? I heard crying. That's all I heard. When she cried in the middle of the night, when she cried in the middle of the night, when the baby cried in the morning, when the baby cried in the afternoon, as a guy, I heard the same thing. I heard a baby crying. But my wife, she heard a whole different song. In the middle of the night, she knew the baby needed to be fed. In the middle of the day, she knew the crying man, you got to change me. In the morning, she knew you got to pick me up. I used to look at her, I said, I don't get it. This is our first kid. You have no experience. Who taught you the difference? Is it like a pitch? Like, do you ladies hear like a different vibe of the sound wave, of the pitch of the cry? Where one cry says, clean me, and then the other one says, feed me. I mean, I'm hearing the exact same thing. And she says, you guys. But you know what this shows you? That they were given a certain gift by Hashem. Given the gift that they can do their job to the umpteenth of perfection. That they don't see the baby in need. They can actually feel the need of the baby. They can feel when the baby needs to be fed. They can feel when the baby needs to be changed. For us, on the other hand, all we hear is a nagging, crying baby, and we're sitting there in bed saying, oof, it's not my turn, it's not my turn. You go get her this time, it's not my turn. That's the difference between us and them. Says Mar Ukva, when Mar Ukva saw an ani come to him, he saw an ani in need. But when Mar Ukva's wife, when that ani came starving, she didn't see an ani in need. She saw the need of the ani, and she felt the hunger. If you feel hunger, you can't hand them a few matbeot. You got to hand them some food. You have to hand them some food. This is the Baal Chesed. This is Vayar. He didn't just see, but he perceived the need. He understood what people need. Rabotai, we're in a generation today that there's so many today in need. And I want to tell you something. You wouldn't believe how little it takes to give a person a few minutes and really raise them up and give them what they need. It would blow your mind. And it doesn't take a lot, but it takes some heart. And more than that, it takes an eye who's looking to want to help people in need. Those are the people that are the true Baalei Chesed of our generation.